I'm wondering if you could please share some advice with me and my listeners as a biblical counselor, some tips for talking with people, trying to help people who have been harmed by NAR or other false teaching.
Yeah, so good question. And, part of it depends on where they are, if they're coming out of it, if they come out of it, if they're still in it and all of that. But it's really important to ask questions just to hear the whole story, the context, as much as you can. And you want to just hear where they are. And sometimes they're maybe more mature than we understand, or they're less mature, or they know more of the Bible or they don't know the Bible, or they have been taught in some good areas or whatever it is. But we want to know as much as we can before jumping in. And Proverbs 18:13 says, he who answers before listening, that is his folly and his shame. So we want to ask good questions, get the best understanding. Often we want to jump through. We just want to, get to the quick fix and same way. And we want to help them out. And that's understandable, but come alongside them first. And if we already have that relationship, flesh that out where they are, and then ask specific questions. After you kind of get the general understanding, ask what exactly is it that you believe? And I love what you said as far as telling them exactly what NAR believes and whatever other false teaching it is, and just say, how do you square the circle? Or what do you think of that? And what do you think of that? How this applies? And with that, we want to be careful to not come across as holier than thou or know-it-alls or condemning them or mocking them. Or, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, or whatever. People do that, but to truly love them, and that's sometimes undersold as the importance to the importance of that when people they see you genuinely care, that they can trust you. That's a big part of it. And also this too is a process that you're not going to flip that person out of this in one conversation. It's possible, but you want to have the long-term approach. It's like, okay, I'm going to love this person. I'm going to ask them some tough questions. And years ago, 30 some odd years ago, I was, when I first moved here, I was living with a friend of mine, and he was a pastor, and we lived at the church, and some Mormon missionaries came by, and we just started to talk to them, and we asked them questions. We just let them talk and share their points, and okay, good. And at one point, by the way, they stopped us and they said, "You guys are different." And we're like, "What are you talking about?" We're used to people yelling at us. And we're like, "What do you mean?" Like, "Yeah, we're riding our bikes and somebody stops and said, 'You're going to hell. You believe in a false prophet.'" And whether that might have been true, but it wasn't loving. And then people don't respond. They go, "Oh, okay, I repent in dust and ashes now because you said that." We can emphasize just the caring part and lack the truth too. So we want to be careful. We want to speak the truth in love, and more. I call it seeking the truth in love. When we're asking the right question, we're seeking that. And with that, you find out a lot about that person and you build that rapport. So in talking to these guys, we were able to love them. And I remember we took them to a driving range, and they were just thought that was a hoot, and we had fun and just wanted to know them and love on them. But, and then we started asking the questions, and like, "Oh yeah, we don't know that." And, "Oh yeah, we don't know that." And unfortunately, which often happens, their bishop or whatever pulled them out because they went and asked their bishop, and they just stopped coming by. And that is what it is. But like a couple of years later, my friend got a postcard in the mail, and it said from one of the guys. It was one of the guys, and he told us what happened, that they got pulled out. But he said, "Your questions, we couldn't answer those questions. It got us thinking." And I eventually left my trip, and I became my mission, and I became a Christian, and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying this formula works, just do this formula, but I'm just saying that's a good way to go about it, where you hear people, you hear their heart. Kind of the same thing in any kind of counseling. You want to understand the person. You don't want to just jump in and say, "Okay, that's wrong," and you do start doing this. Maybe if you only have 5 minutes or something like that, but if you have a relationship, you want to ask those questions and steer it into the specifics. Love them, give them grace. So yeah, I've been duped before too, but here's what helped me, and here's some verses. What do you think about that? And go back and forth, and again, have that big picture in mind, that this could be over months or years, or you're planting seeds, and you don't, back to that thing, you don't control the outcome. There's a quote from John Quincy Adams when he was fighting against slavery and it was decades away from being abolished. And people said, why are you doing that? You know you're not going to see it abolished in your lifetime. And he responded these 6 words: duty is ours, the results are God's. Our job is the duty. How do I love this person? How am I faithful with the truth? I want to be equipped as much as possible, be able to share the truth and say, okay, that's a good question. I want to go back and figure that out, work on that. But the outcome, how that person responds, that's not up to me. Quite ironically and pertinently with our subject, where if Nara thinks, no, it's all up to you, you just name it and that person gets saved or whatever. No, it doesn't work that way. Our job is to love. We control 100% how well we love if we're relying on God. In other words, I can't say I didn't love you because you were mean to me or because I was having a bad day or what. No, I choose how I can love by depending on God and his truth, working on his truth. We can't blame something outside of us. But that outside of us part, how people respond and what they choose to do and what God does, that's not up to us. So keep that in mind. Don't be discouraged. But if you love somebody with the truth, that's a wonderful thing. Be blessed. Don't expect that you're going to change people's minds and solve all their problems, but you can love them day by day according to the truth.